morning. I'm Ashley Rooney from Lexington Remembers World War II Committee, and this morning we have Ted Buttrick, also known as Edward, but Ted is his favorite, what he likes to call himself, who was one of our World War II vets. Ted, welcome. You told me you grew up, where did you grow up here? Did you grow up in Lexington?
Yes.
And you decided to join the Marines when you graduated high school?
Well, I was going to be drafted.
Uh-huh.
So I joined.
So it was better to join up and volunteer so you could pick where you wanted to go. So you decided to join the Marines. Why did you pick the Marines?
I didn't really know much about them, but I thought it'd be a little different than the Army.
Yeah, they like to think they're a little different than the Army too, matter of fact. So you joined the Marines. There you were, age 18. And what happened?
And then I went to Paris Island, South Carolina.
Right. That's boot camp, right?
That is boot camp.
Yeah. And so
I learned a lot. After boot camp, I went to Cherry Point, North Carolina.
And then at some point
and that was more, it was more connected with the flying.
Okay.
But they put me in the Japanese were then, the air war was starting to happen more so than the Guadalcanal was the big war. And the islands, they were actually going in by boat.
They had you working on airplanes?
Not really. I was in a radar squadron, and we were supposed to see how the Japanese were coming into the different islands. So that part of it sort of ended because they then transferred me to California, but I went across the country 4 times by train.
Wow. Had you ever been across country? Had you ever left Massachusetts before?
I don't think so, no.
So this was a big adventure for you, I imagine.
It was a big event, getting on the train, going down to South Carolina.
And then to go into California. So, and when did
and
you?
Then, I went to California then, and so then I went to the Mojave Desert for a while.
Oh, lucky you.
Yeah, and then we saw the big rabbits out there. But anyway, then they finished up, but they decided to take a bunch of guys to relieve guys that were going to go in the Marshall Islands. And so they put us on a boat. We were relieving the troops that were there because it was near the end of the war.
So they shipped you over to the Marshall Islands?
Yeah, and that's I got into a Corvair squadron.
Okay.
Corvair, fighter planes.
And this is you on your plane, right?
Yeah, I'm on the wing. I don't know.
What's the Ace of Spades meaning?
That was the name. We had a name for the squadron.
The Gilbert and Marshall Islands campaigns was a series of battles fought from November 43 through February 44 in the Pacific Theater.
Yes.
Between the United States and Japan. They were the first steps of the drive across the Central Pacific by the U.S. Pacific Fleet and the Marine Corps. That was you. The purpose was to establish airfields and naval bases that would allow air and naval support for the upcoming operations across the Central Pacific. So you got into the Marshall Islands, and what was it like? What were the islands like?
Oh, it's beautiful. It's beautiful, the island. They have lagoons.
Oh, lagoons, the palm trees?
Oh, beautiful.
Beautiful maidens?
No ladies.
No ladies, okay. So you were in barracks there, you stayed there. Were you being bombed overnight by the Japanese?
No, that's the thing. They were controlled. Once in a while, they'd come over and try to sneak in. And, there's certain ones that But anyway, I'll go. So then they decided the war ended while I was there. But they said, this is the big thing that I did. The war ended, and so they sent us back. They got us a whole bunch of new planes called SB-2C Helldivers. And they had a gunner and a pilot. And then we took those planes back to Pearl Harbor. And
He's talking.
and then we took a boat. They took these planes on a boat, a mini baby carrier,
Yeah, I don't know.
and we headed for
Well, except
China,
if it was me,
because
and I tried to join.
General
but
MacArthur
I don't know how
wanted us to
do it.
go into China,
Yeah,
and Harry Truman didn't
Said
want him to
hello,
go in
and
there.
is this
But
from Brian?
yeah.
they sent us anyway.
They sent you to
So-
China. Where in China did they send you?
Say again?
Where in China did they send
North China, North China.
you? North China. And how long were you there?
And there, I was there about 4 or 5 months.
Oh,
Uh,
I don't think we got to that one.
must have been quite an experience for a boy from Lexington who had never been out of town.
Yeah, that's right.
I went to Tencent, I thought.
So I went to what they call Tianjin, China. I went to Tsingtao, they call it. All these names have changed now. But then they flew us up, and I ran a control tower in Tianjin.
Wow. And what did you
The
do in the,
reason I ran it was because I was the only fellow that knew about radio and electricity.
so in a control tower is you were looking for planes coming in? I mean, was this?
Yes, it wasn't that much traffic, but I would say traffic pattern left-hand turns, you are number one to land. That was before control, a lot of control tower.
Wow. That must have been quite exciting, really, in a way.
So this was like a college education for me.
I bet it was. Now, meanwhile, the Marshall Islands, the fight over the Marshall Islands was still going on?
No, the war had ended, see?
Oh, the war had ended?
The war had ended, so everybody thought I was coming home.
He's not talking.
But I was
Yeah.
put on a special mission because they needed an aircraft electrician and a radio man.
Oh,
So I flew. And then my big thing was that I did during the service was I catapulted off of a carrier, a baby carrier, 24 planes. And of course, the Marines are the first to go in any battle. I don't know, they don't do that anymore, but
Yes, they did.
yes, they do, my son said.
yeah. Wow. This must have been quite something. How old were you at this point? Age 20?
I was 18 and I got out at 21. I was 21.
Wow. In 3 years, you had all these adventures and been to all these different places. That's something. How did you feel? Did you enjoy it? Was it fun? I mean, did you have a good time, or were you scared all the time, or?
Yeah, if I hadn't lost my brother, I would have had a ball.
Oh,
I mean, I had a lot of problems other than, yeah, no, I would say it's a heck of a experience I had.
were you in the military when you lost your brother?
Yes, I was in the Marshall Islands.
Ah. And he was in what branch of the service?
He was a second lieutenant
In the Marines?
Army.
in the Army.
In the Army. Okay. Yeah. And that's horrible to lose your brother. You grew up
It
with,
is.
yeah. But otherwise, you learned a lot. As you said, it was a college education. And so what?
Yes.
Yeah. So you weren't on the Marshall Islands that long.
Well, I was overseas 18 months.
Okay.
So each place I had like 3 months or so.
But I always understood with the Marshall Islands that the Americans were clearing the Japanese off the islands. Did you go through battles while you were there?
No, the only thing I had when I was getting in China, I was a little worried. I remember I did hear a bullet go over my head. So I know you hear it. So I was shot at, but I was not a hero as far as battles. But I learned how to use all the equipment that you needed.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that goes in with my training too.
Right. I don't know, but I would disagree with not being a hero. You volunteered to go here. You volunteered to serve our country. And that's really something. Yes. That's important for the rest of us, right?
Yeah.
It's like our
draftees are also good. Draftees, they had no choice, sort of.
Right. No, they didn't have a choice, but you up and volunteered as a young man and so forth.
Yeah.
When you came back home from China, what was it like to come home here?
Well, it was like coming home to like the Vietnam boys. They had forgotten me because it was this is my opinion, 9 months after the war.
Yeah.
When I got home.
Well, did people welcome you with open arms? Did they?
Oh, yeah. No, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
No. They thought I was going to stay in the service.
But you decided to get out.
Right.
And what did you do then?
Well, then there was a local machine shop, and I think they advertised, but anyway, I went up there because my uncle was a boss over there. That didn't help me though, but I sort of ended up that I was helping the fellow that owned it run the place.
Mm. So you worked, that's what you did? The rest of your life worked in the machine shop?
Not really. I went to Boston Navy Yard, the Watertown Arsenal, and Hanscom Field, Bedford.
Right. And you
That's because I learned all these different things, but not going to college, but going to night school.
You told me you went to Wentworth and Northeastern.
I went to Wentworth and Northeastern and Harvard.
Harvard?
Yeah. Well, I mean, these are night schools.
Yeah.
With, different. And you said you got a kick out of the fact that I got to review myself. Wait a minute. You got a kick out of I graduated from high school at 32.
Graduated from high school or college at 32?
No, high school, because I hadn't graduated from high school.
Oh.
See? And so I had to take history and English at Harvard.
Aha.
CED.
So
to get my equivalency, they called it.
now you told me you had to read Macbeth or something.
Yeah, right. You got a good memory too.
So
yeah, that's right. I read Macbeth.
Did you actually walk down the aisle? Did you walk down
Pardon?
the aisle with the kids, or to graduate, or did they just give you a diploma?
Yeah, then I graduated. Everybody else that went in the Marines, the principal would graduate. I never heard anyone else that didn't graduate, but Lexington principal didn't graduate me.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
He
That's
wouldn't give
wonderful.
me my tip.
I've run into a few of the other vets who, like you, didn't go to their high school graduation and immediately went into.
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. But when you think of all those young men going off to the Marshall Islands or to Guadalcanal, what it must have been like.
Yes, right.
Yeah. As you said, you learned a great
But
deal.
they did it willingly, you know?
Right. Right. But they didn't really know what they were getting into.
No.
No. No, you told me at one point when you were on the AF Corsair working on the fighter planes,
Yes.
I think this was in the Marshall Islands, that you were often scared. You thought you were never going to come home at times.
Oh, yeah. No, I never really thought I was coming home, especially, I don't know, after I lost my brother. I said, I don't care if I come home anyway. No, I mean, I don't mean it really that way, but,
Yeah.
you know, I had to have that attitude. You have to have that attitude. And
Yeah. You're willing to take that adventure. So it must have been something. Your parents must have been thrilled to have you come home.
Tell them you lost your mom.
Yes.
10.
so I don't know.
Just say your dad was,
My dad was very happy I came home.
I bet he was.
But-
He had his son back. And you probably could share stories with him.
Yes.
Yes, and
Yeah.
tell them about your adventures, because you certainly had a lot more adventures. I
I
think,
lost my mother at 10.
oh, I'm
that's
sorry.
okay. You need your mother.
Oh, yeah. So that was hard. You had two major losses when you were a young man. Yeah.
Yes.
tell them about having your scheduled lunches and dinners every week.
Say that, what you want.
You always told stories of, you know, because you lost your mom, you and your father had scheduled meals every day.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah,
Beans
my
and
father
rice.
and I, my brother was gone, of course.
Tell them you went in the service early.
He went in the National Guard. You
Yeah.
know, all men were like that. There was the CCC camps, and then the guys went, Franklin Roosevelt, you know, he had all these, he started all these. The country was going apart as it was. Like, I mean, I can't explain certain things. Did you want to talk about my brother at all?
If you want to talk about him, yes, go ahead.
Because there's no one to talk for him but you.
Tell us about Francis. Did you call him
All right.
Frank?
Well, he was also in the States all his life until the World War II was almost ending. And then they sent a bunch of officers over just to sort of end the war, I think. I'm making this up, but anyway,
Where did they send him to? The Pacific or
they
Europe?
sent them
Stay still. You don't have to go back.
Oh, yeah.
Just
Well,
stay still and talk.
yeah.
Did he
They
go to
sent
Europe?
They sent him over near the end, put it this way, near the end of the war. The war was almost over.
Right. In
Yeah.
Europe.
In Europe. In January of that, he was captured by the Germans, this whole group of men.
Oh,
Because they went in and they were marching across France. And I thought he was captured as a prisoner. So I said to myself, well, he's going to be all right because they take care of prisoners. Well, that's exactly wrong. The Germans were still not very nice. And so as he had to march across Germany, all these group of men. And I have a story from a chaplain that was with the group.
yes.
And there's a book that's, you know, the book that we have.
Captured by the Germans. He was the chaplain of that group of men.
Yeah, she knows that, but I'm trying to point out that
Okay.
they didn't have it good. And they marched, and finally they got to their destination. And it was, where they were going with the prisoners. And so they encamped in this pine group. Nice, Fanny was still all right. And that night, our planes flew over, and dropped bombs because it was near a bomb dump. and pieces of shrapnel flew all over hell, and they hit my brother
Oh, oh,
from the American planes.
oh,
It's called, what do you call that?
Friendly fire.
Friendly fire.
yeah.
So my boy Brian was born on the day that he was killed.
Oh,
That, I don't know how, that just, it's happened. So,
yeah.
and my other boy,
She's gonna think that you're that old.
Now, I understand that.
okay,
So he was killed, and your parents, your mother, your father found out. Or somebody let him know.
yes, that was a sad thing.
Someone on the radio, shortwave radio, found out he had been captured and notified.
Yeah, they in the shortwave radio, they found out he was captured. But then after that, we sort of thought he was all right because prisoners are supposed to be taken care of.
No, he wasn't. It was
Right.
horrible.
At the end of the war, it was difficult in Germany. I've read another book by one of the vets who, and it was called Fated to Survive. And he was a POW for about 60 weeks there. And it was hard.
Yeah,
It wasn't as hard as it was in the Asian front, but it was hard and not much, very poor diets and long walks. But I have to thank you. That's good to learn more about your brother and what happened there. I did not know about the friendly fire. That's really sad. There he was defending us, and then it just happened by accident. But you know, what you've done today is really wonderful, to share your stories with us and to get your family there helping you tell the story too.
okay. Thank you very much, Ms. Rooney.
You're very welcome.